Hi everyone, welcome back. Tonight I'm going to do something a little bit different than what I have been doing recently. I am still on a quest to make the material design library well tested. I really would like to get to the point where I can trust my test suite, that if everything's green, that I'm clear to kick a release. And right now I don't have that level of confidence, and it requires a lot of manual testing. So tonight I wanted to go through and show off a library I've been poking at building. Um, so far I'm happy with the results, and I think I've gotten it to the point where I'm confident that this is going to be something I want to use moving forward, but there's still a few more things to build out and test. So I figured I would start by kind of walking through what I've built and what's there. If people are interested in following along, this currently exists in, drop it up. Apparently it's not on my clipboard. I was going to get a link to it. This currently exists out on a branch on my fork of material design in XAML. So just be aware that if you're looking for it, that is where it is located. So let's dive in and take a look at this thing. So the key thing here, I guess, is to understand the use case of what's going on here. Is right now there are effectively two types of common testing that people can do against a WPF app. You can unit test it, which is great. Works very well against all of your, I shouldn't say all of it, for almost all of your C# code. And you can structure your code with, say, MVC or MVVM or similar, right, to make your code easily testable. And for apps that people are building, that works really well. The problem is the material design in XAML library isn't an app. It's a theming library, which means the vast majority of the code in the library consists of styles and templates and color themes and custom controls, and those don't lend themselves well to being unit tested, because ultimately to test a lot of those you need UI interaction, right? Things like mouse hovering events, color changing, that kind of thing. And so from unit testing, usually people jump all the way over into UI testing, which we started doing a bit with Appium, which was great, and that got me fairly far along, except for it left a bit of a problem in that a lot of what I wanted to test wasn't interaction. It wasn't the presence of elements. I wanted a lot more control to be able to effectively test things like the triggers. So, for example, on a list box, if I go through and hover my mouse, let me just fire up and demonstrate, because this app is about as stupid simple as you can get. This is a list box on the left, and if I hover my mouse over the list, you see the light gray. I want to test to ensure that when the mouse hovers over one of these events, that I actually see that color change, right? And UI tests are really bad at this. You can do things with like screenshots and image manipulation, which I pursued a little bit. The problem is those are really tightly coupled and really brittle. Depending on how similar you're willing to let images drift, even little things like clear text can botch your pixel matching, right? And so it gets to be a bit problematic going down that route. And ultimately, what I started to realize is I want something in the middle. I want to test it running inside of I want to test my controls and themes inside of a WPF app, because I want that full UI stack. I want to be able to see how it looks and how it runs in a real application. But ultimately, I want to be able to drive down to the low-level visual tree elements to be able to extract properties and similar things like that. And a large bit of the inspiration comes from Snoop. I'm sure people who've watched my channel a bunch know that I love Snoop. Snoop is one of my favorite debugging tools for diving into this. And Snoop lets you go through and, apparently not with this. Okay, we're going to fix this real quick. Quick demonstration. Snoop WPF. Apparently I need the latest version. I've been sitting on an old one and it's been bothering me, and I just need to grab the latest. And GitHub changed their layout. Where is the releases page now? Releases, issues, pull requests, actions, projects. This is the branch. Go to file, 3 branches, 12 tags, releases. They're on the side. Ah, okay. Do I want, you know what? We're going to go big or go home. We're going to try the alpha release. Because why not? Let's use it. So Snoop allows you to go through and actually take a look and effectively, quote unquote, snoop on the visual tree. It lets you inspect what's there and, more importantly, make changes to it. And ultimately, most of the tests that I want to write, the assertions can be written by inspect the element on the visual tree and pull the property back so that I can do some sort of check against it. Now, I hope, a little concerned that I see multiple versions. There we go. So, for example, this guy conveniently shows our main window and all of this. And so if we drive all the way in to, say, this element, right, and I back up to the list view box, what I can see, and I believe it's the background if I'm not mistaken, is it the background? No. What is changing on this? Oh, mouse over border. One of you is being set. Is it background? See, and this is why I want, yeah, there it is. So the background is actually being set to this black, but you'll notice the opacity of it is being tweaked and animated as the mouse goes over. And so ultimately, I want to be able to write tests against these things, and that's really a pain in the neck right now. So how do we fix it? Or at least, what is my current thinking? So right now, this code lives directly inside of the project. I do not believe I will merge it in as such. I think this is going to end up living as a NuGet package that pulls in. But the key thing to note is I've got this VT for visual tree tests right here. I don't know what to call it. I'm bad at naming things. Suggestions welcome. But I've got this little project here. But let's actually, the proof is in the pudding, right? Let's take a look at actually one of the tests that I was able to write with it. So this test recorder is something that I built previously. This works around Appium and unit testing. Basically, on a failed test, it'll grab a screenshot, snapshot it at the point that it failed, and record it so that we get those included in the build outputs, right? So this is sort of just boilerplate here. We can ignore that. This here pulls out the theme color for the primary hue mid brush, which is great. We'll look at how that works. This guy here is getting access to the generic host. So what is that? So inside of this UI test case, you will note there was a generic test case here, right? And it is an empty user control, but it has the name, we'll move that down, right? Generic host. So that's the key part here, this X name generic host. So on this guy, he is getting a reference to that visual element. Now this iVisual element is my own interface from this project here, just to be clear. But the key part is this guy has a method called setXAMLContent, where I can just dump some content into that guy and pull it back out. So it just dumps arbitrary XAML in and returns the root element from that XAML. I then query the background property off of it, grab the value, and I can make the assertion that the background property on a button on the default style should be the primary hue mid brush. So, proof is in the pudding. Debug the test. And let's watch it work. And I hope it works. It worked the last time I ran it. It works on my machine. Does that count? That should count. I think it should count. So, you will note this app here has dumped in a button, right? And it does have the background color of the purple, which is the theme color. If we look here, the mid color, 673AB7, and then it retrieved back 673AB7, so the assertion is going to pass, and the unit test works. And then the app closes. And That is the level of testing that I would like to write. This level of testing where the setup, so if we were to break this up a little further, right? So this is the arrange portion of my test. I'm ignoring the recorder because that's really just boilerplate, right? And technically, I guess this is the act because this is actually what is loading the button, right? And then the assert, right? So part of my assertion is retrieving out these guys, right? One could actually argue that maybe these belong here, something like this, right? That this guy sets it and retrieves the property since the test is all about the color. And then the assertion is that the background color should match. So how is all of this working? So this library makes two big sweeping assumptions. One, WPF core. So .NET Core 3.1 WPF. We'll get to why that is in a moment, but that is assumption number one. Assumption number two, Appium. So the only reason for Appium is because I was not interested in writing my own mouse interaction, process starting, that kind of stuff, right? I didn't want to deal with this. And so you'll note that my button test derives from generic test base, which derives from test base. And this is the same one I think I showed on prior streams, where this is using Appium to go through and start up the application. That's all the test base does. The generic test base is the one responsible for going over and clicking on the generic option on the left. So this execute test case just clicks on generic and pulls back. And then this is the part where my library starts running. So I want to get better integration built in here, but for now, this was the quickest path to testing. So it does this connect to app and gets back this IApp interface. Now, an IApp interface just has a couple key things on it, right? It allows you to gain access to the windows, and then it allows you to query the app level resources by resource key, right? And right now, the resource keys are all strings. I know in a resource dictionary, the keys can be non-strings, but for the purpose of what I'm testing now, this is good enough. So this was all built around the idea of minimum viable product. So what do I need today? And I'll add the rest of the stuff later. Okay, so that is the constructor. You'll note we called the get generic host, which just queries the app for the main window, and then from the main window queries out the item with the name generic host. Again, ultimately, this needs to be more robust rather than just querying by name, but for now, again, that works. It's worth noting that normally you can't just do XName lookups because of name scopes in WPF. You would not get inside of this user control with this name scope querying from the window. So it does do a full visual tree recursion looking for it. So again, plenty of opportunities for improvement, minimum viable product, ship it. And then the theme color just queries the resources. So the question then comes, how is this code ultimately communicating with this app, right? Because this is clearly not going through the usual UI interactions because it's gaining access to this. So let's come over here. Currently, what it's doing is on the app that's being tested, there's a server that's being started. So test.start service. And then the service is just cleaned up on exit. Now, between these two things, because this guy, the generic test base, right, with this app, this is effectively instantiating the client. And then over here, this is effectively instantiating the server. And the communication between these two is gRPC over named pipes. That's the primary reason for .NET Core, is you cannot do this in .NET Framework that I'm aware of. Pretty sure you can't. So protocol buffers and gRPC, what are those? So protocol buffers is a binary serialization by Google. gRPC aims to make that really, really easy and awesome to build out. So with gRPC, you build out this protocol file, the proto file, I guess, right? And you lay out your service protocol. So what members do I want on this? Get windows, get main window, get element, get property, sort of all of the things that you just saw me invoking, right? And there's the parameter that's passed and the return value. So you'll note most of these things either take queries or requests, right? So query if it's getting something, request if it's setting something, and then it gets back some result object, and I've laid out what each of these look like here, right? And so these are effectively the protocol going between my tests and my app so that I can see what's going back and forth. So this is the magic sauce that's going back and forth and doing all of the work. So the key part here is, well, let's just chase it from up here actually. So the start service, right? Because this is ultimately what's running on the service side. And again, calling the class test, this is screaming for a rename, but meh, good enough for now. Right? So it goes through and instantiates up a service, right? And this service here comes in here, and this is what's being built up. So this is the thing that's holding onto the protocol buffer server with the named pipes. And the key part here is this bind service to this visual tree service. So that gets us all the way into here. So all of that stuff pretty much follows the standard getting started tutorials. And the key part here is this protocol file. As you hit save on it, this guy's got some custom tools that go through and generate C# code for you. So for example, one of the things it'll generate, and we can just go and look at it. So it makes this big long file, right? But one of the things it generates is this protocol base. And the key part here is it generates a whole bunch of virtual methods that you should override because they'll throw if you don't, right? For all of the methods that you declared. So the key part here is what you do is you override the methods and you describe how they should work, right? Because they can't generate that. They don't know what your method should do on the server. But you don't have to think about the communication flowing back and forth, right? So on gate, I get my request object in. You'll note it's an async method. I do some asyncy stuff to go through and retrieve the main window of my application. I build up a result. I return it, and away we go, right? Obviously, error handling could certainly be beefed up here because there are plenty of failure cases possible, right? But all I had to write was that many lines of code, which is pretty cool, right? And then, so for example, the get main window on the other side, if we go through and look at here, so my library exposes up interfaces, but the implementations are in the internal. So the IAP, right, for get main window, I have a client, right, that comes into here, and all it does is get main window async, creates up the request object, and away we go. Now you'll note this client, this is one of the coolest things, right? This guy has both get main window and get main window async, and it doesn't matter which one I invoke. It's already dealt with the difficulty of async and synchronous overloads and building those out, and I don't have to think about that. The generated code builds all of that out and handles the communication back and forth for me. All I have to do is provide the implementations on both sides. So no more dealing with figuring out how should my thing talk back and forth. How do I send this? How do I do that? It just works, and it's awesome. I love gRPC. I am now a firm believer. The other thing to note is gRPC is cross-platform, cross-language. If you pull their docs, I think it's pretty much every popular language under the sun right now is supported, give or take a little bit. I'm sure somebody will come up with, my favorite language here isn't supported, but yeah, close enough. Let's see. Trying to figure out one of my lights is giving me a bad. I'm trying to figure out which one it is. It's that one. Just turn it off and not worry about it. Okay. Anyway, protocol buffers, this thing working. So this is where I was going to pick up and run with it. So right now, obviously, that first test that I showed is fairly simplistic, right? So close all tabs. Right, so this button test is very simple. What I'm looking to go to next, right, is to actually test that exact case that I mentioned a moment ago. So I want to test my list box item, right? So I want to be able to set this as the contents, right, of my items. I want to be able to query this guy. I want to move my mouse over the element, right? And I don't know about this syntax. I haven't decided. XPath always feels weird, and rolling my own feels also weird, and well, that is going to bother me. That's close enough. So I don't know, but this is a working theory. Again, MVP for the moment. And my plan is to use or to leverage Appium again to do the things like keyboard interaction and mouse interaction, because I don't need to reinvent the wheel. And ultimately, these tests, it's worth noting that they are sort of like UI tests, right? Like, you can't run these in parallel. Your app is only ever going to be in one state at a time. You're not going to have multiple mouse cursors. You can't, like, some people can do some fancy testing by maybe setting up 4 windows and doing multiple coordinates and that kind of things to speed it up. That's great. I'm not looking to try and improve on that at the moment. What I'm really trying to do is give UI testing a lot lower level for people who are building things like theme libraries and custom controls. I don't think I said this earlier. I want to be very clear on this. I do not think that this is a good way of testing for people who are building apps. Okay? Just to be clear, I do not think that this is a good level of testing for people who are building apps. So, just to be clear on that, I think this is targeted very specifically at people building custom controls, themes, that kind of stuff, where you actually want to test that type of stuff inside of your XAML. For everything else, I think UI tests are probably better. Again, I don't have a huge amount of experience, but I'd want to see some use cases against it, because I do think that the UI tests give the better level of abstraction for when you're actually building out an app. So let's go through and see about getting this going. So it's worth noting, this implementation isn't done. And this, I think, is what I want to do next, right? So this actions class is what's ultimately used for Selenium to do a lot of its interaction. And I think I'm trying to figure out exactly what I want the API to be. So and I think what I might do is just move to element, right? I might make my API mimic the Appium API a little bit and hide it. The problem being that the way they do theirs is just, it feels weird, right? It feels weird. And I thought about deriving from their own interfaces. The problem is there's a very tight coupling here between getting an element and like searching for an element. And I understand the building up of these things, but this move to element, the fact that it takes in an iWeb element rather than something smaller, makes it very difficult to just add an interface to one of my things. Now, I suspect the move to element probably, I don't know this for a fact, but probably really only cares about maybe these things, right, for doing the calculations. But I don't know, and I don't know if it's going to end up doing extra stuff, right? Which is why I'm a little hesitant to derive from this interface or implement this interface on my own objects, right? And let it flow through, because this feels like I'm going to run into a lot of cases where not implemented starts getting thrown a lot, which would be most of these. And I don't think I want to go down that path. So I think what I want to do, and again, this is sort of me just playing around with where I want to go. But I think, so you'll note even like the set XAML content is an extension method on Visual Element. Visual Element is pretty light by itself. It allows you to query child elements, get and set property, and get resources. And currently, That's about it. So I think what I'm going to do, though, is I think I'm going to add an extension method. Something like public static async task, maybe a return value, move to element. Let's see, how about point offset, right? So because I think by default we'll make it behave sort of like the Appium ones where it centers unless you offset it from there. I think that's where we're going to go. So the hard part here is we're going to grab this. I think we're going to end up having to actually take in the driver. I don't know if there's going to be a good way around that. Let's see, move to element, no extension. Did we not just write that? Move to element. Blind or stupid? I think you're there. Let's see. Windows driver. Let's go and look and see. I don't know exactly what I'm going to need for this guy. So what do you take? WebDriver. So let's go back over here. You're going to take an WebDriver. I'm wondering if maybe this should be on the driver itself rather than on the element. Oh, and this guy currently doesn't have a dependency on Appium. I'm wondering if he should just blindly take one or if I should separate those out. I wonder if I would ever use this without it. I think for now we're just going to take the dependency. I don't see a reason not to. And we can separate later. Again, this is minimum viable product, so let's get to minimum viable product. So there's that. WebDriver, so now you should resolve. There we go. And we'll do a little null checking. Oh, hang on. Add null check. Don't do anything fancy on me, please. Okay, and so now the list box tests. Let's see, we're going to end up needing to do something akin to this, right? Get rid of that. There, paste. Okay, so there's the actions. That is, yeah, so there's a lot of errors happening. That's exciting. So that's the using that we want. That's the driver that we want. Okay, so we want to move to element, but I don't think that's actually, so that's not going to work, but I think we want to move by offset. So I think what we need is we just need to get the current mouse coordinates, and then we'll just move the mouse. That sounds simple. There are, let's see here. Thank you, Snoop. I don't think we need you. C# get mouse coordinates, p invoke. I know I've seen these before. No, we are not using system forms. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I am looking for. So we are going to internal class native methods, boom, something akin to that. And actually, before we paste it, let's just move you into your own file before I get too carried away. Paste. So move you guys up and out and format all, something akin to that. So we've got a point. Let's see, and this is a system Windows point. Great. That is pretty much exactly like what I wanted. So in screen coordinates, that is, I believe, what we want. I don't know if this is going to be in screen coordinates, so we might end up having to do a little extra math. Let's see. So, oh, this is why it's not finding it. This I visual element. All right, so let's just start moving these things down. Do something like this, do something like this. Null checky. That sounds great. So we need to get our element screen coordinates. Get screen coordinates. Not sure exactly what I expect this to return, but I'm sort of thinking a rectangle. I think that makes the most sense. Right? So if that exists, move by Oz. So then we want, let's see, point, current position gets native methods, get cursor position, and then we do a little math. So let's see. So let's see. Point center gets location. Do you have a? You don't have a center. You don't. So we're going to make one. We are going to make one. Let's see. Internal static mixins. That needs class declaration. So I can do the math here, but I've found that a lot of times when I want to write a helper method, it's just easiest to put it into extension method because it's a little bit of Yagni, right? Like the general principle is until you need it multiple times, don't overanalyze it, but I'm overanalyzing. And I think part of it is I've written this method enough times that I'm fairly confident. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you are a struct, so no null check necessary. So let's see. So you have. So we're going to return a new point. The x position of the center will be rect left plus rect width divided by 2, right? And then the top will be top plus something like that. Poof, now we have the center. And let's see. If offset not equal to null, center plus equals offset. Is that a thing? I thought points had. Am I crazy? Do points not have operators over operators defined? You do have it. I thought you did. Oh, point vector. So point plus a vector. What's a vector look like? You know what? Here's what we're going to do. This is the easiest thing. Yagni. Poof, problem solved. It's amazing how much code you have to write when you decide you don't need it. Okay, so what we do want to know is the difference from the gets what? Center minus current position right? So, hey, figure it out. Point. This is this a vector? I think it is. Pretty sure that's what I just saw. 2 points subtracted returns a vector. That makes sense. So move by offset becomes movement x, movement y. And what are you complaining about? Sure. We'll just trim these off. Because at some point we got to do rounding anyway. That sounds good enough. And the last bit is this move by offset returns and actions. So I'm wondering if I should do this instead, right? Move to, is there like an execute or do build? Builds the sequence of actions. So we're going to build you and then what? Perform. That's a nice long chain of events. So I think it's actually designed to be written like this. Build, right? And then do it. I think that's, let's get rid of our, hello, Telesense? Have you taken a holiday? Sure, I understand. You're unhappy about that. I don't know why I've lost my light bulb. Yep, it's just gone. Okay, so element gets screen coordinates. So we still have to implement this. And I'm trying to decide the cleanest way to do it, but I think the easiest way is we just build out a new method here. Get the screen coordinates of an element. That does not look like, spelling is not my strong suit. If that wasn't clear, let's see. Okay, so the way we create one of these things is we go RPC, get screen paste. Let's see, and I did learn, though the tooling will handle it. If you don't do the spacings like this, the syntax highlighting doesn't. So spacing is important for syntax highlighting. Let's see. So this is a get. So screen paste, and this is a query, and it's going to returns a screen coordinates result semicolon. And now we just got to declare these down here. So message screen, yeah, you'll note I'm even getting IntelliSense telling me, hey, I'm pretty sure these are the things you want to declare, which is awesome, right? In general, with protocol buffers, these IDs, you should not change them once you publish, right? In my case, I get to cheat a little bit because these are going over named pipes and I'm going to be controlling the client and the server from inside the same library. It's a little bit less of a concern because it'd be very difficult for somebody to rev one without getting the other. So it's a little bit less of a concern. Still worth noting though. So let's see, string element ID. So inside of this library, it's keeping track of elements that it's seen by a generated key. So this is an easy way to go and look up things without having to reprocess the tree every time. So let's see, is that all I need? I just need the thingy. Okay, so message screen coordinates results. And so the repeated keyword here is effectively like an array or a list. It's the I want a lot of these thingies, not one of these thingies. So just by convention, this is how I've been declaring my objects. I don't know if it's great. Meh. Now the question is, do we declare our own rectangle object or do we just pass the literals? Because protocol buffers has a very limited built-in typeset. Now, obviously, I can declare my own and build out what I want. But the question being, if I declare my own rectangle, it's only going to be used for the transport. And is it worth doing that versus just, right? Is it int? What is the protocol buffery type? IntelliSense. Number int. What is it? What are you? Element error, blah blah blah. Key in, name of, option. Screen service string. I could pass this as a string. I just thought there was a, I'm pretty sure there's a built-in like integer type. Protocol buffers number. Let's see, or how about number type? All right, because I'm language guide. That's what I want. Show me the spec. Scalar value types. Ah, there we are. Let's see, int32 will work because we are talking about screen coordinates. And to the best of my ability, that covers everybody. If I need a int64 or bigger, that's way too big. So we'll just do that. Let's see, so we'll go left will be the second element, int32 top will be the next element, int32 right, int32 bottom. Right, so that's simple enough. So let's go implement it on the service side now. So now, just by hitting save on that other file, oh, I just realized I don't have, that is not what we're going for. I wanted Karnak fired up. So now over here, what I should have is a public override get screen coordinates. Poof. You'll note I had to do pretty much nothing to get that. So from here, let's figure out what to do. So if we look at some of these other methods, this is probably a fair-ish reply of what we're doing. So step one is I've been newing up the reply, but we are going to do a string coordinates result. Pretty much everything that this library is doing requires switching to the UI thread to touch the UI elements. So pretty much everything leads in with an application dispatcher invoke because I got to get to the UI thread to pretty much do anything. And I don't think we need any of the property stuff, so that goes away. Right, so this get cached element will pull this out. And because we're assuming that the caller can pass us an element ID, that implies that we've seen this element before. Somebody's already queried it with a call to get element. Right, so that should get us. Could not find element. Yeah, at some point I need to figure out error messages because the element IDs are generated. I could display it, but right, you didn't set that ID. You don't know where it came from. So not overly helpful. Let's see. So we've got the element. So element. What is the get? It's like two string coordinates or get screen. Okay. I think I have to I think it actually has to be cast up to a framework element if I'm not mistaken, right? This guy is actually what has get point to screen. So this just needs to be a visual, right? Because this will do it. Converts a point that represents the current coordinate system of the visual to a point in screen coordinates. Perfect. That is what we want. So how about if element is visual, right? Else we'll just do a reply error messages add. Let's see here. So from there, element is, how about element of type blah blah is not a name of visual. Boom. And that is not how you spell name of. And we will do this and go with element get type full name. Sure. Great. Sounds wonderful. So now we've got this. We've got this. Point to screen coordinates. And what we need to do here. So this becomes visual, and we want to do new point at 0, 0. So this point will be in the top left-hand corner of our control, and we'll convert it to screen coordinates. So point top left, right? And then we'll get the bottom side. Point bottom right gets visual, point to screen, new point, and we will do visual. Oh, I don't actually have width, do I? Okay, we're going to upcast you again. We are going to go up to a framework element. Framework element. Framework element. Let's see. Dependency object. So I really would prefer to use it like this. Use it like that. Okay, so you become element, you become element, and element. There we go. So actual width, element, actual height. So this is going to go through, grab the bottom right hand corner of our control, convert that up to screen coordinates, and now we've got both. And so then we will set our reply up. Reply, let's see, we'll just do it in order. Left gets top left dot x, and it's probably going to be unhappy about that, and we're just going to trim the sucker off, right? So what is it? Okay, I can't remember. What is duplicate line? I've been trying to teach myself Control E, Control V, Control E, V. Okay, I'm trying to learn. So top, Control E, V. Right is going to be bottom right of X, and this becomes Y, and this becomes bottom. Okay, something akin to that. Boom. Okay, this guy kicks back a reply, and I think we're done. Looks good to me. Cool. So now that handles the server side of things. We now need to handle the client side of things. So this guy gets screen coordinates. The question comes, should this live on, I think this might need to live here. Let me look, because this guy's going to need to get access to the ID. So yeah, so we need to add this to here. So we'll just add it at the end. Task rect get screen coordinates. Boom. And you need to be the Windowsy one. Great. So that should make the test at least happy. Well, screen coordinates. Am I really that bad at? Oh, this guy doesn't see it yet because it's. No, it should be. screen coordinates. I cannot spell. CREEN. And this is going to need to be awaited. So some people like to go through and suffix all of their async methods with the word async on the end. I generally avoid it, and my only rationale is if everything in the library is async, it's a lot of extra typing in words that doesn't add a lot of clarity. And I just assume that that's tribal knowledge that should become readily apparent very quickly. If you've got async and non-async overloads, I think it makes a lot of sense, but that's my usual stance, is that it's a lot of extra typing for very little gain. But some people have made good points about it being easier for like code reviews when you don't have a lot of context to be able to catch mistakes like that. In general, though, I think if you use them incorrectly, outside of like the dispose method, it's really hard once you realize that your return type doesn't match what you were expecting. Usually the compiler whacks you upside the head pretty hard. Okay, visual element needs to implement our interface. So, autocode, implement interface. Thank you. Okay. Boom. So this goes here, this goes here. Do I have something that does window derive from visual element? Oh, it does. Oh, that's interesting. Does iWindow derive from visual element? Oh, it does. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know how that's going to work. Probably doesn't. I think you have to go through different methods to get the Windows coordinates. But oh well. So we'll deal with that later. So what we need to do is we need to use our client and make a query. So code generally looks kind of like this, just by patterns. So let's see, async, and let's see, get. Actually, I'm realizing now that this guy here should probably. Oh no, it is not. It doesn't have the word get there. So screen coordinates query, and I just need the element ID. And this becomes get screen coordinates async. I don't know if it's realistically possible to get. Ooh. Let's just make sure I don't have too many of those floating around. Let's see. Failed 2. Just the 1. Great. I don't know if it's realistic to actually get a null back from this, but I assume that it might, so I put it in. I'm just, if there's any error messages that come back, concatenate them together and throw them. That way I get a useful error message in my unit test, which I find to be quite helpful. And then in this case, I think in this case we just return new rect, right? And we use the reply. So if it came back, so left, reply, top. Just want to check this guy's constructor. X, Y, width, height. That's what I was worried about, right? So X, Y is fine. Width gets a little more interesting, right? So reply is going to be right minus reply left, reply bottom minus reply top. So poof, all of those go through. Everyone's happy. It all works. I am wondering now if maybe we should do a double instead for these types. Because everything else about this is double except for our object. Let's do it. Let's change these, right? So we're going to come down here and we're going to go ding. So let's see. It's that's Visual Studio Code keyboard shortcut. Double. Right? And we're going to, let's see here. So I thought I started Karnak. Is it not running? It appears that it may be crashing. That's exciting. Okay. That should be fine though. So this now no longer needs conversion. This will go to a double. We should change up our service, where I think we were also cropping it down to an int let's not do that anymore. Now you're a double. And that'll just work. We'll still have to go down to an int when we get to Appium, but that's a limitation of Appium, and so we'll keep the half pixels around for now. Great. So that works like that. That pulls back the screen coordinates. That goes there, and that just works. And so this will move it to the element and click on it. Okay, so this guy needs to be awaited. Again, I'm not overly thrilled with move mouse over element. Not overly thrilled with that. Don't need that, don't need that. We'll deal with this here in a moment. Show. The next part is this guy, because this is going to fail right now. And actually, let's just debug this test far enough to make sure that we're getting to this point before we get too carried away. I believe we're getting to this point. But we should see the app launch and it get into at least a state with a list box loaded into that generic control. And it crashed out early, so that's exciting. So what did you blow up on? Cannot set unknown member listbox item header. Is this not legit, XAML? Maybe I don't know how to write my own XAML. That is a possibility, because what I'm expecting to get is right here something like listbox and listbox item. Oh, it's content, isn't it? Oh yeah, it's content, not header. Okay, so that blew up with predictable results. So content, right? Let's try this one more time. And poof. So it got the list box, it set it, and if I look here, I should have item 1 and item 2. Okay, so this is where I expect a failure. Boom. And I'm hoping it says couldn't find element, failed to find element by query, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, so couldn't find it using slash listbox sub 1 in control listbox. And the reason is because this query is something fairly new. So this should probably be renamed to query, because I'm pretty confident that's what it is in the implementation. Yep. And this guy here, find element query. Oh, that just passes through. I need to go to the service. Service. So we aren't going to worry about just yet. Pretty please. So it's this evaluate query. So we're in get element, right? So it comes in, finds the parent element to look from, which is what we expect, right? So it found the element because we got down to this error message. So it found the list box, which is great. It went to evaluate the query, and it didn't find a dependency object. And the reason is because evaluate query is my own method, and it's apparently buggy. It was done in a rush on a low Mountain Dew intake. That's a recipe for disaster. Disaster. Okay, so ultimately what we want to do, because this is sort of currently, I shouldn't say sort of, this is designed right now to support effectively dot syntax for dotting your way through properties, right? What that's really bad at, though, is if you want to go through and look up children, right? So I think I would love to have a syntax like this, where I can just say, hey, find me, slash means I'm no longer looking for an element by a name, right? So the basic rules I have right now is, so starts with dot means property, right? Starts with slash means visual child of type, right? Otherwise, search by name. All right, this is currently the way the query syntax works, right? And I think what I would also like is to support ends with, right? And pull this. Let's see. Optional indexer for ends with. And so I'm a little torn on what's the easiest way to do this. And I don't know the answer. And I'm kind of wondering if perhaps maybe a better syntax would be list box get elements. And if this guy kicked me back an async enumerable, perhaps, or even an IEnumerable, this would allow me to fairly easily pull it apart and do what I wanted with it. So rather than having to evaluate the query client side, or server side, I could just evaluate it on the client. Is that going to be too much data to send around? Because these iVisual elements are pretty lightweight, right? Data-wise, they really are just an ID. The more concerning bit is the service, right? So on the server side, query without. Oh yeah, hey Magnus. So the and I think I have a pretty good example. Let me jump back over here. So like these button test, that one doesn't do it. Actually, where's the generic host? So this one here, where I'm querying the generic host control out, is actually a reasonable example of this. So this says get element, and it just feeds it a name. And so it says go walking through my visual tree until you find something with this name. Now, it's worth noting this is disregarding named scopes. So that's a bit of a problem, right? So if you try to hunt out something out of, say, the button template by its name, and there's more than one button in your visual tree, you're going to run into a problem. Especially if you start it. So this starts from the main window and just walks through everything. And ultimately, it's looking to grab this user control with the name generic host. So this guy, if I fire up the app, because this app is very simple, there's really not much in it. So if we click generic and click execute, yeah, thank you. Don't need the breakpoint anymore. That user control gets loaded right here. So obviously it's hard to see, but it's the only thing in the visual tree with that name. So it's very easy to query it out by that name. And a lot of times, especially if I'm starting from a particular element, I kind of want to just disregard the name scopes and just drive through the visual tree and say, find me the first element that matches, right? And so in the service, blah, 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 let's see. It uses this code here from a starting element to go walking through all of the children in the visual tree. So it just goes through looking for the descendants until it finds one with the given type. And the usage of this, let's bounce up. So for example, on this evaluate query, so if the parts.length only has one, so there was no dot, there was just a straight name passed, it goes looking through the visual tree from its starting root, right? And it just finds the first thing where the name matches. So it just blazes on down. So if you tried to pull something out of like a control template and there were two controls of that type on the screen, you'd probably run into a problem. So, and that's why I'm a little torn on what to do here. So part of me wants to start writing unit tests right over this. And then the other part of me is remembering that I'm literally invoking this code from a unit test. So there's a little bit of trade-off, right? Ultimately, I want to just write tests that exercise all parts of this and just build the parts as I need them. I'm trying really, really hard to not build too much. And I'm effectively having to build my own little query language, and I'm not sure I like it. And I'm sort of wondering if it makes more sense to just give me give me something that lets me return back a collection of visual elements. The only issue there is the visual elements, they themselves don't know hardly anything about themselves. So a visual element from this library's perspective doesn't have any members. It just has methods. And so it doesn't even know its type. So if I pass back a collection of these things, I'm going to have to add a bunch of members to this so that I can do reasonable queries like find me all children that are list box items. That sounds yucky. That sounds very yucky. I think we do it on the server. That sounds easiest. So I think then we need to break this sucker apart. I don't really want to write a tokenizer, but I think I'm going to have to. Is there an easier way to do this before just writing a tokenizer? Is there an easy way to do this before writing a tokenizer? I don't think so. Because this splits on properties. Do I actually expect it to... I'm thinking maybe the part of this that needs to break apart and do something like this. So how about static object evaluate name query. So I think I'm going to do this. Yeah, I think I'm going to do this. String name. That way, so because right now the part that's bothering me is there is a lot of stuff here that is, it's just sort of tribal knowledge and doesn't communicate intent. And I think I want to put, I think I want to put some meaning to some of these. So a local function like this allows me to put dependency object root, I think. Is that, am I allowed to do that? Sweet. Yeah. And it is hard. Oh, do I expression body the members? No. So I think what we're going to do, and then I think I'm going to do this, right? Static object evaluate property query. And the part that's going to get a little hard here, dependency object root string property, is these methods ultimately need to somewhat be recursive. This one is sort of a special case, but the property one, in theory, I can dot my way to victory all the way down, right? Which is, so for example, an example of using the dot query syntax would be this here, right? So the set XAML content that we were using back over here in this test, it sets the content in and then returns back the visual element that's the root of the XAML. So ultimately, this is just a convenience helper around set content, retrieve content. So it makes the sweeping assumption that you only call this method on an element that contains a content property, because if you call it on something else, it's going to explode. Which I was like, meh, good enough, right? So it calls set property, sets the content with this, and there's this special type. I'll show this one off real quick. So set property. So there's some bunch of type descriptor stuff for locating the property that it needs. And when you call set property, ultimately the request object sends the properties through. Oh dear heavens, that is ugly to look at. Sends the properties through as strings, or the value for the property through as a string. And so I set it up so that you could pass types along with it, so that it could convert back and forth. So ultimately right now there's a limitation of this that says any property setter that you call has to be serializable to a string that can be deserialized with the type descriptor. However, because it's WPF, I'm cheating and banking on the fact that I know that all the properties that you can set in XAML by definition have to be serializable to a string so that the type descriptor works. So at least everything that you can set with attribute syntax in XAML flows through here nicely. The only thing I had to do is I made this hard-coded string that I intentionally started it with a period because I knew that that would make it invalid for something like type get type, because a type cannot start with a period. It has to start with alphanumeric. And so I intentionally did a special case for that guy so that the server would then know, okay, don't treat it as something that can be converted with the type descriptor. Instead, it'll do the XAML reader, and then just for fun, I also handle the default namespace. There's probably some improvement that needs to be happening here, because this will not work if you try to pass any XAML beyond what's in the default namespace. So the moment I try to use this and pass, like, say, the material design and XAML dialog host control, this isn't going to work, and I'm going to need to expand my API. But I'll cross that bridge when I come to it, because right now I don't need to come to it. So at some point, this guy will need to do more. But what that more is to be determined. Okay, back to where I was bickering on evaluate property. So evaluate property. I'm thinking what we want to do is let's start here. So from this query, I think what I want to do is have a recursive function that evaluates out the next portion, right? String, or how about for each? Well, what do I want? What do I actually want? I need two things. I need, when I'm parsing this query string, I need to know what is the type of query. So effectively, what is the leading character? Period, slash, or neither. Currently, that's what I need. I then need the next segment in the query string, so until it hits one of my other characters. And then we can deal with the indexer in a moment. So I sort of need that. So I think what I actually want, boy, I should really move this into its own class because this is going to grow big fast. So private enum query part type, right? Okay, and so you should always have a none or an unknown or something as your default. But then we're going to have name, property, and type, I guess. Child type. Type. Now we'll go type. No, child type, because it's going to have to know to go down to the children. Good enough. Okay, so you stay there for a minute. We're going to do another static function. Static query part type string query. All right, so this guy's job is literally going to be to look at what's in the get next query type out value. Meh, good enough. Something like that. So it's gonna do something like that. So we'll do the simplest thing first. So if query dot starts with a period, right? We are going to actually, I'm thinking what I might want to do is actually, rather than looking at what it starts with first, figure out how far to go, right? So maybe I need to look for the presence of the other characters first. So, doesn't regex have an index of? Oh, it doesn't, but it has a match. Okay. So the age-old problem, if you solve an issue with regex, you now have two issues. So we're going to solve it with regex. New regex. And in general, you should pull your regexes out and probably make them static or cached, because you end up doing a lot of extra allocations if this gets called in a tight loop. But again, I'm not worried about performance at the moment. So what I am looking for is I want to pull out a few special characters. So I want to hunt out periods. So that we're going to backspace to escape them. So I'm going to look for periods. I'm going to look for square braces, and I have to escape all of these for regex because these are regex characters as well. Or I want to look for /, which that one I think I can get away with. So I want to just find that. So regex match query var match. So this will give me a match object. Nope, that's the wrong keystroke. Let's try that again. Wow. Okay, 1 second. I'm going to relaunch really fast because, oh, physics installer. This was a poor time to do this. I really want my autocode button to work. Initializing. Can we not install whatever you think you need to install right now? I promise you it'll be worth it. Oh, one other thing I will mention again too. So for people who didn't catch it, I did change up the name of the solution on the material design project. So there is, it's probably itty bitty, and I'm sorry. So the solution is now .full.sln. But if you're used to the old WPF solution, there is a solution filter. So the full one will load everything, including UI test cases. But I realize that that involves extra external dependencies that people may not want to worry about. So if you don't want to worry about it, that's totally fine. Just go down to this solution filter and it'll load up the same set of projects that were there before. So that's all solution filters are sort of pre-canned list of projects in a solution for you to do. Okay, do I have autocode button? Yes, that's what we want. Autocode for the win. Okay, so if match dot success, then we found one of those guys, and so now we have the index of where we need to stop. So if that's the case, query gets query substring, boom, from 0, and the length will be match dot index, right? So if it matches on the first one, I'm going to grab everything up to that character. Actually, I think I'm going to strip off this and just look for dots and /, because I'm going to want to leave the indexer as part of this so that I can pick it up. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. So that'll strip the query down to just the current thing that I'm interested in. So then what we'll do is, if the query starts with this, what we are going to do is this will ultimately be a return of query part of property, right? Oh right, I'm gonna have to set value to something, so deal with you in a minute. If query starts with boom, then, and I am realizing there's a culture sensitivity thing here that I should probably deal with, but again, minimum viable product at the moment. QU query part type. Let's see, child type. Otherwise, we're going to return query part type. Let's see, name. And this one I think is easy. Value gets query in this case, right? So we aren't going to support anything else. So value in this case, I think we just do query substring 1, right? Because that says start index. Great. Start index and just trim off the first one. This one I think we have to get a little more creative with because I wanted to support the indexer at the end. So I think that, well, so we can start by setting it initially, right? So value gets query substring 1, but wow, typing is hard. Here, the problem. Lack of Mountain Dew. Much better. Okay, so if we have that, what we really want to know is, does it end with an indexer? And if so, we want to return that back. Do we, though? Do we? I think we're going to come back to this because this may not be the right place to handle this. So, yeah, I think that's what we are going to do. Let's try to build this out. So we are going to do a switch. Let's see, switch on get next query type. We are going to pass in query out string value. Boom. So worth noting, I'm considering most of this here down here. Deprecated for now, because I don't care about fixing that right now. So all of you can kind of go away. So the easy case query part of name. We're going to handle this right away because this is just return evaluate name query, and we pass value. All right. I think I actually need to pass root and value. So that's easy. Case and query part property. Right, and we're going to return evaluate property query. So this is what I'm wondering about, right? So name is not going to be recursive. There's no reason for it to be yet. But these next two will be, which is what's giving me a little bit of pause. And I'm going to just do something like this for the moment. Because I think that I'm going to want something in here. So evaluate property query. So let's go down here and let's see about evaluating this. So if you get a property name, which is what would come through here. So this is going to be root and value because that's what was pulled off the query. Then I think what I want, I think I actually do want some of this code. So I think what we want to do is we want to pull this up, right? I'm trying to decide if I make evaluate query recursive or if I just make this recursive on itself with a loop, or I guess iterative, right? And build on itself, because then I can maintain some semblance of context. I'm not 100% sure what to do there. So let's build out evaluate property query. So this is going to be effectively this, right? So evaluate property query is going to pretty much be this. So it's going to get properties from the item, right? And there's also a bug in here that technically we should be able to do attach properties with like grid dot, but obviously that's now a problem here. So we'll have to deal with attached properties, and I suspect I'll deal with them the same way you do in XAML, where you do the parentheses around them. But again, not an issue I am chasing right now. So we property, let's see, property descriptor. We'll just rename that, right? And then this becomes property descriptor on root. And I'm kind of wondering if this should really be something not root, because this may not be the root object at this point. Get value, return, right? Failed to find property on type root, like that, something like that. And actually this else is now meaningless. So we can just do that. Much simpler. Yeah, it does smell a lot like XPath, and that's yes, and there is some sort of prior art to leverage, like Appium, when it allows you to select elements. One of its choices for querying elements out of the tree is XPath, but it's worth knowing. I don't know if you watched the live stream I did with Mike Kern. The tree that Appium sees from the I'm blanking on the UI server name. It's not the same as the visual tree. So, and that's the part that bothers me. And it allows you to query using XPath this XML representation of your visual tree, but it's not the visual tree. It's some lifted implementation of it, which makes sense because the tree that they see is very much tied to what an end user would interact with, but it is not good enough if you want to do things like interact with it. So that's sort of the goal behind this, and I'm somewhat tempted to just say go full on XPath implementation, but oh yuck. I would be pulling in a special library to do it, and it falls apart a little bit with things like attached properties, and so I'd have to customize it anyway. So it's like yuck, yuck, yuck. I don't know if there's a right answer, but I know I need this much at least at the moment. So I think what I'm somewhat tempted to do though is make this iterative. So this return, so get next query. I'm sort of tempted to do this, right? So something about while query dot length is greater than 0. This feels yucky, but it also feels like it's going to work. Yeah, this feels like it's going to work. And it makes me feel all yucky inside doing it. So we're going to keep going. So let's see. You become current. You become current. We'll come back to what to do with this in a moment. But I think if we pass this by ref, right? And I think what we're going to do is I'm going to do query part type return value. And I think what we're going to do is go like this, else if, like this, else, like this. So some people get very hung up on whether you should have a single return in a method or not. I generally like my early returns. However, there are some cases, specifically like this, where we're effectively building state trees, that it's really, really handy to have a single return. So I don't default to it. I know some people do, but I am very conscious of the fact that there are times where it really does make the most sense. So query gets query dot substring match. Oh wait, hold on. I just realized something. We just substringed this guy down tiny. So how about this? String current query. I need to be conscious of the fact that I'm now passing this by ref, so abusing the same local inside is no longer the same behavior. Let's see. So this guy really needs to be current query, and that needs to replace that. Oh, I wish there was. This is one of those few times where multi-cursors is. I really want to. Okay, something like that. Okay, so that goes down to here, and this means then that we do query gets, actually I think we go up here. Because this would mean query gets query substring. Wow. Hold on. There we go. So something like that. Else query goes straight to the end. All right. So if we didn't find effectively a terminating character in the remainder of our string, we're just going to run to the end. What are you suggesting? IntelliCode. Oh, that's clever, IntelliCode. Thank you, but no, you're wrong in this case. Yeah, don't try to follow what I'm doing here. Okay, so I think we're going with that for the moment. So he will effectively just start eating the query as we go, right? So hopefully he doesn't iterate forever. This guy will evaluate property, and I believe what we want, current, so is going to get result, and result gets that. And I think we're even going to go a little further here, right? Like, I don't see how this doesn't end as recursive, but just because I don't know what else I'm going to put in there later, result gets that. And current is going to get result converted. What are you doing here? What are you doing to me? Break. And actually, I guess I don't need these if I do it this way. This makes that a lot cleaner. So the idea with this being that if you're dotting through multiple things like user control dot current dot width or something, right? This guy will actually when you do the dot current, because that's expected to be a user control, we'll cast it to a dependency object, which will then get used as the root level element for the next evaluation. And I think what we need to do is previously I had a null check. Yeah, we had a null check up here. So we're going to do a null check here. Because this air part's here. So effectively, because it's breaking apart, if current is null, I don't think I really need that. But I do want this exception, because if we get to a case where current is null, could not resolve, and I don't think I need to evaluate the query portions anymore. Could not resolve query, so whatever is remaining on null element. So good enough for now. Something else at some point that I need to improve is right now I'm always just blindly throwing exception. There has got to be a better exception type to throw in pretty much all situations. So let's see, that much is handled. So we don't need that code anymore. That much is handled. The null part is handled. The empty string case is handled. Get property is handled. The resetting of current is handled. And the rethrowing is handled. Okay, so all of the existing code should now work. I think. I hope. Just to make sure I'm not crazy and that this much does still work, let's just rerun the button test, because this one worked previously. So we'll at least validate that a minimum level of success works, because this will validate that I can retrieve by name and I can retrieve by property between the get generic host and set XAML content. But apparently I am not compiling because semicolons are hard. Okay, so get rid of that test code and let's do this one more time. Come on. There. Pass. Oh, what'd I break? What'd I break? Oh, wait. The button test pass. Yay! Button test passed. Okay, that much is good. Perfect. Okay, so we're still retrieving that much. Well, now we want to deal with the next one. So, case, query type part, let's see, child type. All right, so this is going to be this one. Result gets evaluate child type query, current, and value. Boom. We now need to implement this. So we're going to collapse this, and we'll just add a new one. So static object. Yeah, I do like this, these nested functions in here. I think it helps establish meaning behind what all of the individual parts are. Makes for a really big outer method, but ultimately it's fairly isolated. I kind of think that this whole bit probably needs to be refactored into its own class, but that's a future problem. Okay, so this guy here, and so this is no longer a property. Let's see, child type, and I'm going to call this query still, because ultimately all it's done is strip off the /, and so what we're looking to do is we're going to end up inside of our method with something akin to this. So I think what I want to do is just iterate the visual tree, looking for items, looking for direct children of that type, and then if there's an indexer, apply it. Sounds simple. That sounds simple. I think it's simple. So var, let's do indexer regex. Boom, boom, boom. So we're going to do something like, so I expect to find that, some number of numeric value, that, and I expect it to be at the end of the string. So let's see, if indexer, and actually, let me see if I can remember the syntax for this. I believe the named group is paren $open index close close paren. I believe that's the right syntax. Given that the newfangled highlighting is picking it up correctly, I'm guessing I got it right. So if, let's see, how about we just do this? Match gets indexer regex match. Oh, we recommend saving your work and then closing and restarting. That's not a good sign. I'm noticing there's a new preview out. I probably need to download it, but that is a problem for not right now. Let's see, child type query. So if match dot success, we are going to pull out, I think what we will do is int index get 0, right? So if there is no indexer specified, we're just going to grab the first one. But in this case, we should change index to match.groups, groups of name index, pull the value, and I'm very comfortable with an int parse here because my regex should guarantee that I see nothing other than numeric characters. Okay, so now visual tree helper get child count. Actually, you know what we can do? We can do root. Why can I not? What's my descendants call? Oh, so yeah, so I can just do. Well, I don't want to do descendants because I don't want it to recurse. But I do kind of want this. Well, I want something that starts like this. So get child count of root, right? So from the element, I want to iterate over them. I want to pull them out. And this is effectively a null check because getChild returns a dependency object. And I think what I want to do if index equals 0, because I think what we'll do here is we'll go and, so here we will do child get type name equals the child type query. Oh, but we need to strip off this if it exists. So child type query substring, wow, string. Whew. I clearly need to work on typing skills. Let's see. So match index, right? Because if it finds a match at index 3, I expect to pick up 0, 1, and 2, right? And this is length. Yeah, I think that's right. If not, we'll know soon enough because my unit test will start failing. So if it matches index minus minus, right? So we're going to do this. So if index is 0, I think we return child. If we get all the way to the end, return null because we did not find it. I'm wondering, I guess a null return probably makes the most sense. I mean, how do you handle the case where it doesn't? I think my only choices are null or throw, but I believe null will end up, it'll set current or similar. Because what do we do on property if we don't find the property? We throw. Maybe we should throw down here too. So we'll either find it or we'll throw an exception. Throw new exception. Fail to find child element from query. But I've already replaced this. Whatever. Fail to find, how about child of type. Boom, there. Let's fix the message. Let's try that. Great. Let's see if it works. I don't think of anything else. So this guy here should flow through. So let's see. So we're going to launch a debug session, and we should get at least this far. I hope. Oh. I'm realizing a flaw in my logic. I suspect this may blow up. Yeah. So the exception was thrown by handler. Does it not show me the... This is one thing I also haven't figured out is good debugging of this, because effectively the process that's running the service is out of process of this. And so when the server side throws an exception, having that propagate back, which is why most of my result objects have that list of errors, so that I can throw the exception inside my unit test project. And so then we get a good failure on this side. But I'm fairly confident this is going to fail, and I'm trying to decide if how to the appropriate fix. So the issue being that this guy here we said was only going to go one level deep, and I'm not sure that's correct, because for example, if we fire this guy up and run, right? So where's my Snoop? Where's my Snoop? Man, I've got 2 snoops installed now. That's going to be a problem. Because I can guarantee I'm always going to pick the wrong one. If we look at these list boxes, the list box is here. And if all we do is query the visual tree and query the children, the border is going to come first. So I actually needed to go down ding, 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 ding until it gets to here. So I'm thinking maybe what I do, trying to decide how far nested it should go. Because I'm thinking I do want it to grab descendants, but how deep do you grab descendants? It's almost like as soon as it hits the first level, it needs to not. Okay, so we need to fix this over here. Blah 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 blah. So what is the appropriate fix? Because we could just grab all descendants. The problem being is this is a depth first recursal rather than a breadth first, and I'm wondering if maybe fixing that would be better. Because if I make this a breadth first recursal, in fact, this should probably be breadth first anyway. Because when processing XAML, that's probably what you want. You don't want to run down a deep tree only to realize what you wanted was one child over and up higher. I suspect that's more, the breadth first is likely to do fewer traversals than depth first in most cases. Because typically when you're querying elements, you're not going for the leaf nodes, you're going for something higher up. I think we should change this to be breadth first, and we should change this guy to use descendants. So what we will do is we will that actually makes this somewhat easy, right? So we do root I think I'm going to do a for each. So you could use the link methods like skip with the index to get to the right index. The problem that I have with that is that doesn't give me a good way of throwing useful errors. So I think what I want, for each var child in descendants, and in my case dependency object. I don't, because the type that I'm looking for is just a loose string. I think I just have to do this. So we'll do that. So there's all of this. So I can guarantee that what I get is going to be an actual instance of a dependency object. And we'll do this. So if we'll do the same sort of logic, right? So if the type name matches, we'll decrement until we find our index, and then we'll just return. But this will allow us to walk through all of the elements, because I don't think I want to have to worry about, because that's the other thing with XPath that can get really yucky sometimes, is how do you do those weird traversals? And I kind of feel like I don't need all that power, at least not yet. So this is simplest. Okay, so this needs to be a breadth first traversal, which means it needs to iterate all of its children before doing the recursive call. So I think the way you do this is var, let's see, first in, last out. So Q, first in, first out is what I want, right? Because I want to iterate all the children in Q, in Q, in Q, and then go back through the queue and pop, 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 pop. Yes. That is correct, right? Get visual child. So I want to iterate through all of the children, check all of my children first, right? And then kick out. So we're gonna have to change this. I think this is going to become an iterative method. Blah, 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 blah. So we're gonna switch. So var q gets new queue of dependency object, right? Let's see, q nq, right? Parent, and we will loop while the queue has any items. Sounds reasonable. And then on each iteration, queue dequeue. Let's see. Current. Oh. Why you crash on me? Please don't take away my... You took away... Oh, whatever that crash is kills IntelliSense. I'm really hoping the update fixes that, because that would make me happy. Okay, so we will not worry about that at the moment. So we will dequeue the item. For each item, we are going to get its child count. You stop whining. Stop whining. We'll get to you guys in a minute. We will get its child count. We will then get the children. I do question if it's even possible to get a null here from get child. That feels very off, right? And so we will do Q NQ the child, QUE Q. Come on. So NQ the child. And I think what we might do is we might save ourselves a little bit of an effort. So you'll note that this is an enumerable, so we can actually yield return a little bit early. So if child, or actually maybe we should do it on, should we do it on the DQ? Yeah, I think we do it here, right? Because I do want parent to be able to DQ into itself. So if current is T, yield return current. And then we don't do any of this jazz. Match, yield return, match. So the T just gives you a convenient way of filtering on your type parameter down. So nothing's stopping you from passing dependency object, right? And getting this to work. Okay, so that gets us a little further. Now we are breadth first and iterative rather than recursive, which is a mild performance gain. So huzzah. Because in general, iterative algorithms tend to outperform recursive ones. In general. It stopped. Did it hit a breakpoint? Uh-oh. That sort of spinny tells me that it is running in a loop and not ever... Oh, ha 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 ha. Surprised it didn't blow up. So this should be current, not root. Right, so current parent should only be used one spot. Boom, or I guess two. Early return for the null case. No, argument null would be another acceptable one. Okay. Same song, next verse. Oh, you are probably still hung. Let me check, because occasionally, yeah, this is the other drawback, is occasionally you get into this state where if you kill the unit test, Appium is normally responsible for terminating the app, but if you yank its process out from under it, it can't really stop the process. So you sometimes can leave yourself hung, which is not a bad thing, but does not work well. Okay, so we got our list box, we got the element applied. Huzzah. Right, let's see. Do you find list box element 1? You do. Now this is going to be interesting because it's going to want to move the mouse cursor. So I'm kind of tempted to just move my breakpoint down to there. and F5 it. So it moved my cursor, but it also moved it way down here. So I think what I want to do is move to element. I think I want to pick it up here, right? So I kind of want to back this guy up and take a little look and see what. I don't care about you, so let's just back you up and try this one more time. So go in. So get screen coordinates of element. So hard to tell exactly, but this is currently on my right monitor, so it's right of my primary, so being set over that far kind of makes sense. The list box item isn't that big, so a height of 31 sort of tracks. And it is, I suppose, based height to width, that is probably not quite double, so that tracks. Okay, so that works. Where is the center point that it calculated? Okay. Okay, now here's the fun part. If I put my cursor here and then Alt-Tab back to Visual Studio, I would expect current position to return almost the same. So 238837. Yeah, so that should, so movement should be like almost nothing. -3 and 38. Oh, I probably put my cursor over the first element rather than the second element. Okay, still. So move. So this is going to do hardly any movement. Build it. I should see hardly any movement, and it should go down just slightly. Why did that go down so much? Move by offset. What is this not working the way I expect? Move the mouse to the specified offset of the last known mouse coordinates. Maybe I don't understand what last known coordinates are. That feels, so the fact that it's trying to move me. So hold on, let's just back this up and try this again, right? So generate me a new move to, right? So you are going to do some movement. You are not making me feel warm and fuzzy, by the way. Appium, this is not pleasant. Okay. What is going on? So when I step over this, I would expect the cursor to go down about 38 pixels and maybe left a little bit. And instead, it's moving itself all the way to the bottom. Did I X, Y, right? Offset X, offset Y. Okay, so the rest of that is fine, but I am now seriously questioning this. Is this context? Because I'd like to use you to do all of my mousy stuff and keyboard stuff so that I don't have to think about implementing that. But if you tempt me, I will. Don't make it hard on me, Appium. Don't make it hard. Okay, so let's do some simple testing of this right out the gate, right? So let's go back here, listbox tests, and let's just write a simple test. Fact, public void foo, right? Because I just want to make sure I understand what this guy here is doing. So driver should be there, and X. So I'm going to say move by offset. I want to shift it to the right 100 pixels. and I don't want it to go up and down at all. Right? Simple test. Put a thing there, debug. So the only thing is the base constructor is going to do a little bit of work, so don't panic when you see a bunch of stuff happen. Because the base constructor does all this. Okay, so that is set up. Oh, the last thing that it did was click here. If it ends up putting my cursor here, that means it's keeping track of where it moved it, not where it currently is. Oh, that could be the assumption. Let's find out. So if I go back here, boy, that looks like, I don't know, maybe 100 pixels to the right. Okay, so, that is a theory. So if I go 200 pixels to the right and minus 100, I have a sinking suspicion, that this might be how it's doing it. That would be really unfortunate. That would be very, very unfortunate. Oh, that is the wrong unit test that we wanted to run. Mostly because it's going to fail. Well, okay, let me rephrase. It passes, but only because there's no assertions. That doesn't count as a pass. That's a fail. Boom, boom. Okay, so note where the cursor is down near the bottom. Line 37-ish is where it's floating, right? So I expect it to end up kind of about where content is. Okay, so if I back you up, and note my cursor's now up here, right? But I'm willing to bet what this does is it's based upon where it put it last. And so now I expect it to go, up and to the right again, down maybe where the list box is on line 31. Or 29. I'm bad at counting pixels in my head. Okay, so driver is keeping track of some amount of state, apparently. And when it moves by offset, it's based on where it last put it. That way, if you're jiggling, I'm guessing here. That way, if you're jiggling the mouse, it can appropriately handle moving to where it needs to go. That is both helpful and incredibly unhelpful all at the same time. So now the question is, how can I get myself in line with this? Okay, so this move by offset does not work the way I had assumed and will not be useful for these purposes. So the question now is, can I get myself to where I can say, let's see, so driver, mouse, can I mouse move? Ooh. Oh, that's mouse up. Mouse move. Oh, this might work, right? I could just leverage this. So it wants an I coordinates. Oh, this could be, okay, hold on. So okay, so let's play with this idea then. So if we come in here, does driver have mouse or do I need something else? Let's see, question. So do you have any XAML courses out here or videos that could help me start learning XAML? Thank you and sorry for interrupting. Oh, so don't apologize for interrupting. I very much love questions. And the answer is yes. So let me point you to where you probably want to look. So I keep a bunch of recordings on YouTube. So if you start here, this will get you to my channel. So YouTube. So that'll get you to the right YouTube channel. And then specifically, if you're looking for sort of getting started videos, let's see, simply budget. No, I want to search on here. So Simply budget. This guy here, so specifically this video, is probably where I would tell you to start. That has a pretty good introduction of starting out and building a WPF app from scratch and how I usually tend to lay things out. I will warn you, it is laden with my personal preference. There are a lot of people who have other ways that they like to build things. This is my preferred method. So, and obviously it's heavily caked in material design and XAML. So if you've got that would at least be a good getting started. But if you've got more questions from there or more specific things, feel free to let me know. Also, if you run into specific problems, feel free to comment on the videos. I try to get back to them as often as is reasonable. So hopefully that helps you out. Let me know if there's something more specific that you were interested in. Let's see here. So I want to get... So I've passed the wrong thing in here. This is too basey of a class. I need... So driver itself has mouse. And what is mouse on? So this is remote web driver. I'm wondering, so the fact that this has a deprecated on it sort of concerns me. Specifically, this property was never intended to be used in user code. Well, but what if I want to? Okay, so maybe I should not go down that path. Let's take a look at the other. So builder, what do you give me? Actions builder, because I would like, because my fallback plan is going to be grab the window coordinates, move it there, and then that way I have a known good state, and then just jump. So let's see, add action, add actions. Okay, so that's fine. Add action. What does action do? What do you take? What do you take? You take an interaction object. That's great. What's an interaction? Okay, go to implementation. Oh, come on. No problem. Like I said, if you have any more questions, feel free to drop in. I'm always, I have a bad habit of getting distracted on people's questions, but if there is somebody watching who is interested in learning something specific, I am very happy to detour my whole thought process and go off and explain it. So new, is there like a mouse interaction? Okay, so let's start with this. What namespace is that interaction in? Selenium interactions, interaction. So how about this? Selenium. What? Okay, apparently I can't read. So we're going to try this one more time. Oh, open QA. That's what I missed. That's what I missed. So what all do you have? An input device, mouse buttons, and enum. That's not overly helpful. Touch actions, pointer. I do kind of like the idea of a pointer input device, but actions is ultimately what's advanced interactions with the browser. But I want to just move to arbitrary coordinates. Why you no go to arbitrary coordinates? I know where I want to go, I just can't get there. So this is back to where we started. Get locatable from element. I don't want that. I just want to move the mouse. And most of these want to go to offsets. So I think what we're going to have to do is actually jump to a known element. Move to element offset origin. I hate doing this. I do have a sinking suspicion that I can get away with making my own thingy here and only implementing part of it. I have a suspicion that move to element probably only cares about location and size. I think. So we're gonna try this theory. We're gonna try this theory and see if we can get away with this. So let's go into here. So we're gonna get rid of pretty much all of this. We'll leave. Well, no, we're gonna get rid of this. Get rid of this. So var move to gets new actions, right? Passing the driver. We're going to do move to element, new hacky element, right? And this will take in element. So this is going to be my own thingy. And this is just, oh, we should not have you in here still. Go ahead and get out. Don't need you. So private class hacky element iWeb element. All right, so we're gonna do this, and you, my friend, are going to come with. So let's see. We are going to need to actually get that. So we will pass location along with this because we're gonna need to. We're gonna need to know that stuff. Hey. Oh, I killed my. What is the namespace that you are in? Using system Windows. Is that it? Boom. Got it. Got him. Let's see. And system Windows point. Why do we have system drawing included at all? Drawing is almost never what I want. At least not with dealing with this stuff. So, you here. Oh, because, oh, yuck. System drawing. So it's included because iWeb element needs it. Great. That's not what we want. Okay, so I think, and I don't even know if I need element. I think I can just get away with location, right? So if I pass in rect location, right, and create an assigned property, sure, that sounds great. Why did it do location 1? Oh, how about we'll rename this and let's go with element location. All right, so we'll do that. And I think what I can do is I can just pass element location dot top left. Oh, but you want a system drawing point. Of course you do. Of course you do. System drawing point element left element location top, and this is the part where I'm going to have to cast you down from a double to an int. Yeah, because reasons. Zappium only wants to deal with full pixels, and then size, new system drawing size, and then this will be element location width. So the question being, will it invoke any of these other methods? I think what I'm going to do is just do enabled true, just in the off chance that it tries to do anything fancy. Put some breakpoints on where I could see some invocations happening. If it tries to pull any of these things, I might want to know about them. Can't imagine it's going to hit any of those. Maybe on the click. We're just going to blindly return true on all of these guys. I am somewhat curious if it hits either of these. The other two make sense, right? Because it's going to try to move the mouse to those locations. Okay. Let's give that a shot and see. That is obnoxious. Obnoxious. Again, the hacky back path is to just link the windows together. And because I'll know the location of the window, find it that way. That blew up rather. Get location. Must implement iLocatable. Okay, so apparently it takes in. So apparently the first thing it does is convert it to a different interface type. Naturally. How silly of me for being that stupid. Okay, what does iLocatable add to the things? Let's see. It wants a coordinates. And it wants a location on screen once scrolled into view. That's exciting, and I don't even want to think about that math. Okay, so let's go through and implement that interface. Okay, so location on screen once scrolled into view. This is just going to be location, and I'm not going to think too hard about it. Coordinates, I need to know, what do you look like? Location on screen, location in viewport, location in DOM, auxiliary locator. Okay, so this will be fun. Sure. Private class hacky coordinates. We're just going to keep going because why not? Boom, implement interface, and this guy's constructor. Location. All right, and go ahead and implement that property for me. That sounds great. So I think this is going to be the exact same as this. So location on screen. Pretty much exactly what we did a moment ago. Except for this is now called just location. This is called location. This guy here becomes location on screen because I don't want to think too hard. Same with you. Auxiliary locator is going to just be a null, I guess, because I have no idea what that's supposed to be. Okay, so let's try this again. Please don't have another hidden interface. It bothers me that the move to element takes in an iWeb element and it expects something not an iWeb element. Oh, look, it blew up. What did you blow up on? Not implemented. Hacky, oh, get coordinates isn't implemented. Well, we should fix that. New hacky. Did I not just call it hacky coordinates? Oh, not hacky, hack. We'll fix that. We'll fix that. It's important when you're renaming your hacks to make your naming make sense. Boom. Okay, so once again, try this one more time. Come on, before I run out of steam for the night. You can do it. Bing, bing. Null reference exception. View details. What exactly is null here? I want to see your stack trace. Mouse move I coordinates. The only thing I can imagine is that this auxiliary locator needs to not be null. I don't know what it's supposed to be, so we're going to try it as not null. I have no idea what it's supposed to be. I mean, I could probably go through and build my own equivalent of Appium, right? Because Appium is built on Selenium, and it just ties everything across. And I could probably go through and build all that, but the whole point was I didn't want to. Let's see. An element could not be located using the given search parameters. I'm sorry, what? So let's just see. I would have expected a much different error, but like I fed you coordinates. What? My guess is that it really wants to do something with this instance, and I have no idea what that is. Yeah, no idea what that is. Okay, this is quickly getting to be way too hacky. I think the solution is we go to the window and then reposition there. I think that's the simplest solution. I think. Don't know that for a fact, but I'm thinking so. I'm wondering if maybe rather than screen coordinates, this should be window coordinates. It does shock me that this thing seems so set in its ways. And I'd love to use the, like, I could write the API to move the mouse. But I'd like to be able to leverage Appium for this, for all of the benefits that it comes with. It just feels so odd that this thing doesn't have some way of saying move to arbitrary element. So I'm thinking what I may end up doing is I'm thinking what I probably want to do is grab the window element, because I think that should be an easy element to query with Appium in all cases. Because, for example, the UI test case, right? How? So this does, the driver is effectively pulling the main window. So the driver itself is the main window. So I'm wondering if, can I just do driver move to element driver? Is that a thing? Let's go back to my test. Driver. Because you have a, so this one is the derived Windows E one. And I'm wondering if there's an easy way to just grab it. Device time, blah, blah, blah. File detector, blah, blah, blah. Because I'm thinking if I can just get the relative coordinates of the control inside of its window, I will just have this element do the move to offset with the parent being the window, and I'll just do all of my math based on the window's position. Fingerprint. That's exciting. Get app state. Location. What does location do? I'm curious if that would, if this is current location or location of the window. I imagine it's probably location of the window, which would get me where I needed to go. See, start recording screen, stop recording screen, blah, 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 switch to terminate, title. These are my own extension methods. Those don't count. Window handles. I'm wondering if we can get away with that, right? So let's grab that code real quick. So can I driver, move to element, driver. How does one get the root element? Driver, there is a property whose name is escaping me that shows me the context. This string context. I would like to look at the context. Because there has to be a reasonable way to link you guys together. Because right now, the way I'm querying elements, because I'm going into the visual tree, means there, in many cases, there will not be a corresponding Appium element, which is highly, highly problematic. But if I can do all of my math based upon relative coordinates in the window, I think that just works. Again, I'm not using this to test UI interaction. I'm using it to test the visual tree. So I think making certain assumptions like the element will be visible is reasonable for this. So that is not the property I thought it was. Where is the big long show me all of the... That is not the property I thought it was. Show me the property that has all the stuff in it. Oh, thank you for the following. I am probably going to butcher this. Rotorkith thread. I'm sorry. I don't know if I can... I'm very confident I've probably botched that. But thank you for joining. We currently are... Well, I am getting very frustrated with Appium and trying to get page source. That's what it is. And trying to get it to work with a testing library. You are not logged in. Wait. Sorry. Why does logging into... I must have misclicked. And trying to get it to work with a simple testing library that I've built for targeting the visual tree. So that's the current game plan. So that is what I want. But I remember from past experience, view an XML visualizer. And I think we should be able to get the window. Because I believe things like driver, get, what is it? Find element by XPath. Yeah, and I think, if I remember right, I can just do that. I think. So, back it up and try it again. Can I get away with it? Yes, I can. Okay. So, if that's the case, can I get away with... So, if I can move to element, window. So, the idea here being that I expect my cursor to go to the top left of my window. And if that works, I think that gives us a path forward, because it means I can locate my window, I can locate my control's position in window coordinates. Okay, so here is the window. Top left is kind of right below my bar, right? So when I press F10, I expect my cursor to go to about there. Okay, so we do F10. Where'd my cursor go? Oh, my cursor is actually middle of it. Oh. So I assume if I Alt Tab, yeah, that looks pretty close to dead center. So hold on, let's see if we can get this thing to change. So if we do offset 0, 0, right? I think, does that get me all the way up to the top left corner? Because that's where I want to be. I want to be in, close you. I want to be in a happy place where I know where my cursor is. That way I can offset based on a known position. Click, click, click. So once again, I expect the offset to take me to the top. Yes, it does. Okay, so this will be the path forward. So I need my element. When I call item 2, move to element, I'm going to need to have some way for him to get some bit of windowy knowledge. Trying to decide what all I need to pass, because this almost need, oh yuck, because currently I need driver and window and my item. Trying to decide what the signature of this ends up needing to look like. Feels a little yucky. Feels a little yucky. Let's see what, but I think window itself, right? Don't you have a, you don't. You just have a jump over to it. That is not overly helpful. Let me look back over here, because I think there's a Windows element. Yeah, I'm sort of curious what's on this guy, because this guy here is going to be one of those. And he just doesn't know that's what he is yet. Right? Or does he? Oh, he does. So he doesn't actually have enough information to do the work. Yuck. I'm guessing, well, so I don't really have a big choice. I think the signature then of this is going to end up having to be something like, well, actually does it, right? So this move to coordinates, right? This can move inside. Boom. So this guy here is going to come into here. This is going to be kind of like this. We'll get rid of all our hacky classes, because this is a mess, right? So our driver, let's see, find elements by XPath. We got to change the type of this guy to Windows driver, Windows element. So let's bump this guy up, because I don't want to deal with just going against that for the moment. So we're going to deal with that. So that'll get me to there. Come on. Come on. Oh, great. And once again, my thing has died. So I need this guy. And we are going to do... I already lost my place. Back into here. There we go. Boom. So we need that. We need that. That gets me to there. That gets me to there. So this is going to do driver. I think what we are going to do is we no longer need the native mouse stuff, right? So that guy's gone. Don't need him because he doesn't matter. What does matter is getting this position here, right? So this needs to not be get screen coordinates. This needs to be get window coordinates. And this guy is just going to look up the window from the driver. I think that makes sense. There's probably a multi-window situation that I'm not thinking about, but MVP. And so this guy here, so let's see. So this is the center of my target element, because this will be in window coordinates. And if this is in window coordinates, this becomes center dot x and center dot y, right? So it will offset based on the window, and that should work. So we no longer need all of that stuff. We do something like this. We're going to make a sweeping assumption that it is inside of a parent called window, which we're assuming WPF, so that seems like a reasonable assumption to make. That gets me there. This, okay. It's already way later than I normally like to go, but I really want to see this work. Get window coordinates. So we're going to just, because we're going to change this up to be window coordinates. Window. So this becomes window. I'm wondering if this guy has... Did you know anything about your parent that you came from? Man, we could save ourselves a lot of trouble. Not going to worry about it. I'm just contemplating having the element queries actually come back with the element result. Right now it just comes back with the ID of the elements that matched, but I'm contemplating including a window ID with them. That gets a little weird if you've got elements that come back from multiple windows, maybe, but whatever. Deal with it later. So window coordinates. So now I need to come over to my service, which now should be in an error state because I renamed all these classes. So window. Okay, so that should have broken just about everything. Window there. So I believe what I can do is element translate point instead. So window parent gets window get window element. All right, so let's see here. I think I can actually do dependency object. Let's go here. So if we do something like that, if parent is null, something akin to this, could not find, how about parent window for element? Sounds good. So now we know we've got a window. translate point new point 0 0, translate it in relationship to the window, right? Point top left, should do that, and this should be parent, and this goes here rather than to screen. It's going to be parent. There, so that fixes that. Visual element, we need to change you to get window coordinates, and to do, let's see, you become window, you become window, and works like a charm. What are you squawking about? Need to update interface. Okay. You happy? You happy? Test Explorer. Debug. Let's see if this works. Oh, come on. Let's see. Element get screen coordinates. This needs to be window coordinates. Come on. Show it to me working. So fire up the app. Click, click. Okay. So move to element. Boom, boom, boom. So let's see. Location. That looks fairly close to what I would expect. About 620 across, about 360 down. Give or take a little bit. Trying to remember what the window size is set to, but it's fairly large default. So width is 1100, height is 800. So yeah, so that's roughly where I would expect it to be. And this goes here. So we expect to land about here, which is just above that. So I'm going to move my cursor and step. Look at that. If we go back, we may not have landed on the right element because we hit dead center on the item above it, which tells me we did not hit the item I expected. But we can confirm this. We can do this. Item 2, get property content, right? Or content. So I have a sinking suspicion we are not querying out the right. This query is probably broken, is my initial guess. Boom. So what did we get for content? Oh, turns out you need to await the task. I had a whole comment earlier about naming async methods with an async suffix. That's pretty much the argument for it right there. Boom, boom, boom. So I got a property. I did grab item 2. That interests me. That interests me a lot. I do wonder if I do wonder if I'm being bit by the title bar size. Because there was an assumption that 0, 0 lined up with the same position. and I'm sort of wondering if it doesn't. So, but regardless, this is better than where we were. Let's bounce over to here. So lots of stuff. So for anybody interested in more updates on the material design XAML, I am well aware that there are pull requests I've been ignoring. I apologize. I do want to get back to those. I will try and get some of those reviewed, probably potentially this weekend. We'll see how that goes, and go from there. But I do want to try and get these tests working. So more work to try and get mouse keyboard working. So again, for people who are interested in seeing this code, it is currently living out on my own fork. You are welcome to pull it down and play with it. And if people have feedback, I am always open to hear it. So you will probably see me poking at this for a while. Just for my own reference, I'm going to leave that there. So we pulled back. This still bothers me that we pulled back this, but I do wonder if my brain is going to be stuck on this for a while now. If the difference in coordinates of where we're landing is basically the height of this bar. I might have to do some testing around this and see exactly what it records for mouse positions and that sort of thing, because we might have to do some extra math around that. But that can be done. That can be done. So with that, I think I'm going to sign off for the night, since it's about 45 minutes longer than I normally go. Tell everyone happy coding. Thank you everyone for tuning in. For those people who chimed in with questions, always good to have new voices in here, what people are interested in learning. So as always, feel free to drop me a comment if there's anything specific you'd like to see, and we will say happy coding. See you next time.